Hey X, I have a story for you. I can't clearly remember when my grandpa, RIP, actually told me about this. The memory kinda popped out sometime after he died. Early 40s. Grandpa was about 10 at the time. Small village in southern Sardinia. Poor as fuck, to this day the poorest region in Italy. People used to live in houses made of landini, basically a sun-dried mixture of clay mud and hay, some medieval type shit. Grandpa is playing with some friend in the streets. It's getting late and there's a curfew, time to get home. Grandpa decides to take the long way home. As he was in the mood for a walk. At some point, he hears someone calling his name faintly, almost like a whisper. Freaks him out, so he starts walking faster. He hears it again, this time louder and clearer in the voice of a man without any kind of accent. This is important because us Sardinians have a very strong accent, and if you know about it, it's immediately noticeable. Grandpa also used to have a unique ancient Roman-inspired name his father made up, so there was no mistaking it, yet there was no one in sight. It was also getting darker by the minute. Grandpa is literally shitting his pants ATM. A strong smoke smell hits his nose, stronger and more pungent than a cigarette. The man calls again, this time followed by a whistle. Right here, Grandpa. Finally, leaning on a short stone wall, Grandpa saw what he described as a distinct-looking man. Clean-shaven, slicked back hair, smoking from a pipe, wearing leather shoes and a long black coat. He was holding a cane in his left hand and a leather pouch in his right. As I said, at the time people were still pretty much medieval peasants in the region, so that must have looked absurdly out of place. "Come closer," said the man. "No, you're going to kidnap me." Grandpa answered. "Absolutely not. I actually have a present for you," replied the man, as he showed Grandpa the content of the leather pouch. Cont. Anonymous 07/14/19, son, 21:17:39, number 230287191. The pouch was allegedly full of gold coins and jewels. Grandpa knows something must be off, yet he's also very tempted. "Come on, I'm gonna make you rich." Grandpa finally gives in and starts walking towards the gold. As he was getting closer, the man started to look off. He said what looked like leather shoes were actually goat-like hooves. What looked like a cashmere coat was actually made from black crow feathers. Also, his face looked like stretched out leather and some mixture of black oil and dirty. Blood was oozing and dripping from his slicked back hair. His cane also turned into a hissing serpent, crawling in a spiral onto the man's arm. Grandpa was now standing in front of the demonic creature, paralyzed. Its breath smelled like a rotting corpse set ablaze with motor oil. The stench probably worked like ammonia salts, and Grandpa miraculously snapped out of the terror, escaping just a moment before the demon grabbed him by the neck. He made it home running as fast as he can, without ever looking back and praying over his panting breath. Despite all this, Grandpa was still thinking about that gold and didn't sleep that night. Can't blame him, since he found himself eating boiled old leather shoe soles many times. People were that poor, yes. At about 4:30 a.m. he snuck out of the house and came back to the encounter place looking for the bag. What he found was not what he expected though. He said he found a canvas sack full of dirt, worms, shit, and some pieces of coal. Up until the day he told me the story, Grandpa remained sure he actually met the devil himself and managed to escape from him. Here's one about my grandma's crazy, abusive stepmom. My grandma is a tiny 4 feet 10 inches woman. Nicest person I know. Compassionate, incredibly humble. Mom tells me it's because she grew up with a literal wicked stepmother. Described her as evil. Mom grew up around her too. I asked Grandma about this one day. She tells me that her stepmother was very abusive. Apparently Grandma's dad traveled for work, he'd be gone for weeks at a time. During that time, her stepmom would put Grandma through hell. Grandma proceeds to tell me the following story. When she was still a little girl, her stepmom told her that she had a severed head, hidden away somewhere. This severed head could talk, and it told stepmom secrets. Stepmom told Grandma that if Grandma ever lied or misbehaved, the head would rat her out. Naturally, Grandma grew up nervous about doing anything bad. Stepmom would ask her to do the most insane shit and Grandma would just do it, no questions asked. One example she gave was that her stepmom asked her to walk 10 miles away to retrieve water from a creek in a little container. Stepmom laid down some rules. Grandma wasn't allowed to set the container of water down anywhere. And she couldn't drink any of it. And she couldn't take any of her own water either, so basically Grandma had to walk 10 miles in the blistering heat, then 10 miles straight back, all without any water and all without stopping to rest, or she'd technically be setting the water down. And she had to do this all for a little bit of water even though they had a water well out behind her house. Stepmom would always be waiting by the well for Grandma to get home. Sometimes she beat her, sometimes she didn't matter how perfectly Grandma followed instructions. But she could always tell when a beating was coming because Stepmom would be pacing by the well, looking agitated. She'd claim, "The head told me what you did," and beat the fuck out of Grandma for no reason. As she got a little older, Grandma started developing a spine, asserting herself a bit more. Stepmom responded by telling her the story about how she got the severed head. Said it belonged to her ex-husband. Stepmom slit his throat one night while he was sleeping to avoid suspicion from her neighbors. She slashed her own arms and legs. Blamed her husband's death on a group of bandits, claiming they tortured them both. Stepmom showed Grandma the scars where she'd cut herself. Said that if Grandma didn't act right, she'd make another severed head out of her dad. And maybe one out of you. Grandma ran out of the house crying. Stepmom laughing like a maniac as she ran off. Grandma ended up in the woods. She sat under a tree for a long time, crying, until she wore herself out and fell asleep. When she woke up it was after dark. She'd been there for hours. She got up and hurried home. She gets closer to the house, she's quiet so as not to wake Stepmom. She's slowly approaching the water well behind the house when she hears two voices. Can't really hear them at first. Eases closer and can just make out Stepmom standing by the water well. Sounds like she's talking to someone, but Grandma doesn't see anyone there. There's definitely another voice though, which Grandma doesn't recognize. But her first thought is, she's talking to the head. In Grandma's mind, the head knows everything and it's the main reason she's terrified of Stepmom, so she panics at first, thinking the head knows she's there, eavesdropping, and that it's going to tell her Stepmom. But apparently that doesn't happen. So Grandma keeps listening. Stepmom keeps talking, the other voice answers Stepmom's just asking a bunch of weird questions that don't make much sense. The voice speaks really slow and has a deep voice. Grandma is suddenly curious about what it looks like. She tries to get closer. But all she can see is the well, and Stepmom's silhouette in the dark. Then the other voice says clearly, "Someone is listening." Grandma freezes. Stepmom's silhouette ducks quickly down behind the well. It pops back up and looks around. Then hurries away towards the house and disappears inside. Grandma stays perfectly still for a long time. She's worried that her stepmom might be secretly watching from the house. But she's also thinking that it looks like she put something down on the ground before she left. She thinks she left the head behind. After a long while of standing still, Grandma slowly begins approaching the well, crawling along the ground. She reaches the well and her hands feel a strange patch of grass. She feels around. It's a pile of dead grass and leaves. It's covering something. Grandma feels around some more. There's a small handle underneath. She tugs at it. A door lifts up. It's a secret compartment in the soil. Down in the ground, about 2 feet deep, is a wooden box. Grandma thinks this is what she keeps the head in. She's almost afraid to touch it, but she lifts it out of the ground. It's very heavy. Places it down on the ground next to her. She actually whispers, "Hello," thinking it might answer, but nothing happens. She wants to look inside but can't bring herself to. She decides she's going to get rid of this evil thing. Still worried that her stepmom might be watching, Grandma crawls on her hands, keeping to the shadows. She lugs the heavy box behind her as she goes until she's a good distance from the house. She remembers a huge empty tree trunk that she passed in the woods earlier and decides it's a good place to dump the thing. She hurries into the woods as fast as she can, carrying this heavy box, and dumps it into the hollow tree trunk. Then she slowly makes her way back home. When she gets there, her stepmom is wide awake, sitting at the table. She asks Grandma where she's been. Grandma tells the truth, "I fell asleep in the woods." Usually stepmom either flies into a rage or threatens to ask the severed head if she's lying. But instead she just orders Grandma to bed. The next night, Grandma sneaks out of the house. Returns to the tree trunk where she stashed the box and retrieves it. Sets it on fire. Makes sure it's totally burned before she heads back the next morning. Her stepmother can't get out of bed. Grandma checks on her and finds her face looks warped. Said it looked sideways, like her mouth was entirely on one side of her face. After that, stepmom was always very frail. The severe beatings pretty much stopped. Grandma was never sure if there was actually a head inside the box. She never found any bones when she burned it. But I know what I heard at the well, and she wasn't alone out there.